What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Soul Hoops. My name is Jeffrey. I'm joined with Ryan and Matthias. We're going to be doing a little bit of a different type of video today. We're going to talk briefly about some playoff stuff, but then we're going to be getting into some draft prospect reviews. We're going to be doing Alex Sarr and Zachary Richeche at the very minimum, and maybe Nikola Topic depending on time. But before we get into any of that, Ryan, Matthias, how are we doing today?
Doing good today. I'm enjoying my off day from work. I'm excited to be doing this episode. We've been talking about doing this for kind of a while now, and now that we're, the playoffs are still going on, yeah, but one series is over, and we're just kind of waiting for Mavs Wolves to finish up. So we've got some time here to kind of look forward to the draft, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, couldn't say it better. I'm kind of just excited for the draft. Obviously, Blazers have two lottery picks, so I'm a little excited for it, and I'm looking forward to really diving into these players. I'm working on scouting reports and all that for a lot of these guys. So
yeah. I'm excited. Well, so before we get into the scouting, we wanted to talk a little bit about the playoffs finishing up. Getting into the finals. Since our last episode, which uploaded on Tuesday, so if you haven't taken a look at that episode, feel free to go take a look at that episode. Watch that if you want to hear us talk about some other stuff. But the Celtics officially finished their sweep on Tuesday, I believe, or on Monday, maybe Monday, I think. That was that. I think that game was pretty much in their control the whole time. Everything we kind of said would come true, kind of came true. The same old thing. Still, the Pacers have a very high-powered offense up and down the roster. So them being able to, hang in there for a little bit for most of the game, but then when it comes down to it, the Celtics are just, the talent gap is way too big. But yeah, I don't know if you guys have anything else to add about that series at all. Is Jaylen Brown won Eastern Conference Finals MVP? Which was
true.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of, when we last recorded, I think it was already 3-0, and I think we kind of knew what was going to happen. But yeah, the Celtics, they just showed, really this whole playoffs, even against injured opponents, why they're so head and shoulders above every other team in the East and really the NBA. I think we're going to get into the finals in a little bit here, but yeah, the Celtics, they took care of business. We've been saying for years with them how, they've got to improve at closing games and playing on the stretch. And I think they did that, and they played it really well against Indiana down the stretch, all 4 games.
Shout out to Drew.
Shout out to Drew. I think really the whole Celtics team really stepped up and showed me a lot in that, and I think they showed why this year I think could be different than in years past, and I think this is probably the best shot they're really ever going to get at winning a championship, and I think it's kind of theirs for the taking.
Yeah, no, I agree. The Celtics show why they were the championship favorite all year. And adding on to the point where a lot of they've been in Indiana's shoes in previous years, like the first couple of games in a series, just kind of throwing it away at the end. Yeah. And this time it's really nice to see the growth that roster has shown. Obviously, they've added new pieces throughout the years, but they still have the core together. And I think now that core is actually hitting their stride. And it's crazy to say that because they've been so successful, but we got to remember Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are really young. And in Jaylen Brown's words, he's never won shit. You know, he was just saying that. He was super excited, and it's like,
oh, that graphic's gonna go triple platinum if they don't win this.
But they're still so young, and they have so much to do in their careers that I think some of us are a little blinded by how good they already are and how good that team is. And like you said, they took care of business, and not a lot of teams have done that in this playoffs in general. We've seen a lot of series kind of go longer than they should have. Knicks had a chance to take care of business. They didn't. early on against the Mavs, the Clippers had a chance to take care of business, and they didn't. And those are two teams with talent and that were and are capable of doing that. So again, I think the Celtics are the favorite coming in, most likely against the Mavs. Going to be the Mavs, but no, it's finals will be cool. I'm excited.
Yeah. And speaking of Jaylen Brown specifically, because he is the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, I've been super impressed with how he's played really this entire year and in these playoffs. Last year, Jaylen Brown had a rough showing in the playoffs, and was the subject of ridicule and criticism. Whether it be for his that left hand dribble or him just not being a guy that you can consistently rely on to create for himself and to be that second punch that the Celtics need. And he was great these playoffs. And against Indiana especially, I just felt like people say and people have said that you need, like, eventually they'll need to split up Jaylen and Jayson because they play too similar and they clash too much. But I really disagree with that. I think their stylistic differences complement each other really well, and I think Jaylen Brown really finding his own role and own identity and being able to play off of Tatum as well as he does, it makes the Celtics, such a deadly team. Like that two what am I trying to say? That 1-2 punch between Jayson and Jaylen is really like the foundation of what makes this team so good. And Jaylen Brown, just a super impressive playoff run so far, and I'm looking forward to seeing if he can keep it going and eventually win that one.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I think I think talking about those two specifically, because I think honestly a lot of the other guys on the roster outside of Drew, who I already shouted out, I think a lot of the guys didn't have that great of a series. I don't think Derek White had a great Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think Al Horford definitely did. And I think he had one game where he shot pretty well, but he was playing pretty rough on the defensive end. They were going at him a lot, and he was giving up pretty much free lanes most of the series. I don't think any of their bench guys played exceptionally well. Sam Hauser been horrible all playoffs pretty much. Peyton Pritchard was okay. He was sustainable to be out there, but I don't think he was doing anything. And Tillman was pretty good, I think, in the spot minutes he played, but also he was like a sub 20-minute a game player. So, you can't really say that, but the growth from those two specifically as a duo this year, you didn't see it as much during the regular season. I think they played differently because of the amount of players that they had and how talented the roster was top to bottom. But like the growth from Tatum right now that I'm seeing playmaking wise and his control over the game hasn't been there in previous years. I think he's always been kind of an underrated playmaker to an extent. But this year and this playoffs, I think, has really showcased how much growth he has in actually controlling an offense like a top 10 level player should. I think in years past, he can play make, but I think he's struggled a lot of the time with keeping the game in his own control and keeping the game in front of him and not letting other people take over his pace, which has always been the criticism of Tatum. It's the same reason people get in him about his shot selection a lot of the times. But we can see that growth happening right in front of our eyes. And although he still has a way to go, he's still 26, I think. So it's like, he still can grow even further in that way. And, he's a supremely talented shot creator and tough shot maker. It's just him playing the game that works for him and not trying to do extra stuff all the time has been problematic. And I think you see that now with the playmaking and the ball handling. I think he tries to do less. He tries to do more with less, which is what you should be going your goal as you grow as a basketball player. Doing more with less is always better. So, not always having to get deep in your bag every single time down the court usually means you're a better basketball player than everyone else on the court. So I've liked to see that as well. But then hopping over to the West, obviously, in our episode we said we pretty much all said the Wolves are going to win that game 3. They did not. They went down 3-0.
They did not.
They was not a good game from really anyone, to be honest. I think Ant
Naz
played.
Reid, I think, had a good
Naz
game.
Reid. Oh yeah, Naz Reid had a good game,
But that was it.
but that was it. I think Ant had a little stretch there in like the third where he was getting buckets, but it
Mhm.
wasn't enough at the end of the day. Ryan, I'll let you talk about this because it's obviously your team, but
Yeah, I mean, game 3 was the game that they needed to win, and they couldn't do it. It was kind of another example of Ant and Cat really struggling, and then and despite that, it still being close and them not being able to hold a lead late in the game. Yeah, just a rough game 3. One of the worst Cat performances I had seen in a really long time at a really untimely spot in the season.
was he like 0 of 9 from 3 or 0 of 8?
He was 0 of 8 for 3.
That's crazy.
And yeah, it was tough, and it wasn't even like that all the shots were bad shots either. Like it was inside rim, roll out. It was just unlucky misses, I feel like, for the most part, and it was hard to watch. They lose game 3, but they were able to win game 4 in Dallas and bring the series back to Minnesota for a game 5. A team has never come back down from 0-3 before, but I do think that if there is any team or any situation where it could happen, I think it would be something like this, where the first 3 games are really close. They were
Game 3
decided.
was it game 3 that was the game winner?
Game 2 is the game winner.
Game 2, he hit with a game, like a steep step back game for a game winner in one game.
Yeah.
One game was a 2-point loss, and the other one was like a 4-point loss or something.
Yeah, they've all been extremely close and have come down to really 2 or 3 major swing plays. And that's with Ant and Cat shooting probably the worst they'll ever shoot over a 3-game stretch. So,
and Cat already had his comeback game.
Cat already had his comeback game even with the fouls. Like, he had a really good offensive second half.
Cat's fouling is hilarious, man.
It is.
It's probably not hilarious for you, but it's hilarious.
It's not hilarious for me just because, because
you've been dealing with it for years.
I've been dealing with it for so long, but
yeah,
I do think
the problem is he's not even a bad Cat isn't even a bad defender. Like he can hold his own as a post defender for the most part. Like I don't think he's not going to be like a switchable guy, and he's not really
no,
I guess he's not like a shot blocker, but he's not like a bad defender, but he always just wants to swipe at the ball all the time. It's so annoying.
Yeah, but I do think that if there's a situation where a team could come back from 0-3, I think it would be a situation like this. And these next 3 games, that the Wolves have to win, 2 of them are in Minnesota, and they haven't been a super good road team all playoffs, but I think when it comes down to it and in these super high pressure games, having the crowd on your side, I think helps. So
100%.
I don't know. I mean, I think game 5 is tonight. Kevin Garnett is going to be in the building, I hear. I don't know. I think
can't lose in front of KG.
Can't lose in front of KG, but I do think the Wolves have found some things that can help them. The adjustment of putting McDaniels on Kyrie has been really big for them because
Kyrie really struggled last game.
He really struggled last game, and McDaniels guarding point guards is really what he's really best at. He can guard wings because he himself is a wing, but you see these little point guards just get suffocated by McDaniels' length, and I think that was an adjustment by Finch that at first I was like, I don't know, because who guards Luka? But I mean, game 4 it really worked out, and they also found out you can put Kyle Anderson on Luka, and
Kyle Anderson's been low key hooping, bro.
He's been real after having an awful series against Denver. He's been good against Dallas, bro.
Who better to match Luka's pace than Slow-Mo himself?
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean that's how Luka cooks. He speeds up his defender, but you aren't speeding up Kyle Anderson. So
yeah, so the thing is that I've really liked this, and one thing that I thought about while watching that game, I really liked the Kyle Anderson adjustment the last 2 games. Even though they didn't win game 3, I still like the adjustment there. In game 4, they obviously won. One thing it just really pointed out to me was like, when you get deep in the playoffs, it is so much less about like your quote unquote like offensive ability on the court like all the time. Like you really just need people that can win matchups. And like I think obviously like that's obviously always a thing. Like you got to win your individual matchups to win the team matchup, you know. And having superstars allows you to pretty much win every individual matchup in the world. But when you have guys on the court who can decrease the gap between those matchups, when they can mitigate some of the things that superstars or all-star players do very well, like Kyle was saying with Luka, like McDaniels with Kyrie, because McDaniels has no problem, like, because Ant was the one that wanted to take the Kyrie assignment. That was he wanted that. And he can't, the problem is he can't chase Kyrie around because he has such an offensive load. It's the same reason Giannis doesn't chase around guys. It's the same reason, like, all of these, like all NBA, like all-time great defenders that are like superstars, they don't take these matchups because first off, it's almost impossible for them to do that night in, night out. And second off, they have way too much too much of an offensive load to carry. They can't deal with running around screens all night and chasing guys around the court and switching all the time. It's just too much. So Ant playing off ball, which I think playing him off as an off ball defender on one of the, like on a Derek Jones or a PJ Washington, those guys can shoot, but they're not shooters. Like PJ Washington's only like a 33% 3-point shooter. He's been good this playoffs. He's been above that.
Yeah.
But he's still not, you're more okay with him shooting that shot. So allowing Ant to be the guy to come over and double Luka or Kyrie, that's just unfair. It's the same reason Shea plays off ball and they let J-Dub or any of the other guys, like, you know, Case and Wallace, they take the POA defense. So I've really liked that. I think that that bodes well. I'm wondering how that goes. Lively's out tonight, right? Again.
Correct. And that's also a big.
Yeah, Gafford is food. People are saying Gafford's been good defensively this series. He's blocked shots in big moments. He's not been good defensively. Lively's ability to like switch, not really like full on switch, but hedge has been way more impactful than his Lively's ability to shot block, in my opinion. So
Lively being out game 4 was absolutely a big reason the Wolves were able to kind of take a game from Dallas. And if he's missing time moving forward, that's also an opportunity for Minnesota to take advantage of that. And not only does that mean Gafford has to play more, who's not as good as Lively, but then it's like
Maxi Kleber
or Dwight Powell is your backup big, and those guys, you know, Kleber's good, but he's coming back from injury, and Dwight Powell is just bad. So
I'm gonna play devil's advocate here, and I'm gonna say Luka's not gonna let any of that happen. Number one.
That's
and
fine.
Number two, I think the biggest thing with the Timberwolves, like the worry for me this playoffs was, when is the immaturity of Cat, Gobert, and Anthony Edwards on the offensive end gonna play a role? And I honestly thought I thought it was gonna be the Nuggets. I thought Mike Malone was gonna cook up the scheme, and I thought they were really gonna test how far the improvements in the maturity and the decision making has gone. But shout out to the Mavs, shout out to Kidd. They are the ones that have kind of broken through that mentality and brought back out, like, the easiest thing to show or to talk about is the Grizzlies Timberwolves series. You know what I mean? Minnesota, Cat and Ant handed them that series. And you could say with these swing plays that have decided them, it's been Ant and Cat that have handed the Mavs this series. And I don't want to say the Mavs haven't won, because there's a reason. The pressure of the way they're defending and the way they're playing, and even the way they're putting pressure on them offensively, that is mentally affecting them, because I don't think scheme-wise they're doing anything special. But they're ready for it. I think we talked about it last time. They are out executing them every time in the fourth quarter. And I think it's hard to bank on that to turn around when you're playing an all-time great who has a reputation already as a closer, and then you are playing another all-time great who is an all-time closer. You know what I mean? Kyrie has his weaknesses, but in the playoffs, when he sees blood, he ends it. You know what I mean? That's who Kyrie is. He's a finisher.
Yeah.
And I just don't. I would love for the Wolves to extend it, but I think it ends tonight. That's my guess.
Yeah.
I think they win tonight. I think they probably lose in 6. I think they'll win tonight. I think just being at home with a young team with a lot of role player type players who you're relying on a lot of offense from role players from the Wolves. And because we saw it when they're at their best, it's when McDaniel's hitting shots. It's when
Nikhil Alexander-Walker
Naw's hitting shots. Yeah, it's when these other guys that aren't scorers are hitting shots for them, which every team is better when the role players are hitting shots. But you see that's when they're really, because it allows them to really get out and play defense 1 through 5. Because when other guys are hitting shots, they can just lock in on defense. Ant doesn't have to take as much of an offensive load and force things, which in our episode, Ryan said he was not looking forward to the game where Ant was going to keep shooting and he was forcing everything. He was trying to go through contact. He was not passing out of doubles.
That's what I'm saying.
When he allowed,
it's the pressure and then now Ant is throwing it away because that's just immaturity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's a great player, but that's some things that sometimes you can't take things personal on the court, and you just got to play.
Yeah, I think I've kind of just started to understand finally after this long season that like the Timberwolves, when they lose, it's usually because they beat themselves. And that's not, I'm not trying to take away from Dallas at all, because last episode I raved about how good Dallas was and how they've revamped their team. And I think that they are, just as good as any other team in the NBA at this point. They are an elite team, but like in so many ways, the first 3 games, the Timberwolves beat themselves, right? Those big swing plays were not, Luka hit the game winner in game 2 and Kyrie's hit big shots, but Ant throwing the ball out of bounds and Mike Conley going for lobs that aren't there. Like it's been just as much that, in my opinion. And
yeah, I agree.
In game 4, the Timberwolves won that game themselves. And I think that if they want to keep on winning, they just have to, they just need to not beat themselves.
Yeah.
They just not, and even when they have made it hard for themselves, like they've been able to play teams in the past, like Phoenix. Phoenix is a team where you don't have to be playing your best to beat. And the Timberwolves played good in that series, but they didn't play their best, in my opinion. And they were still able to sweep the Suns because the Suns are just not that good.
Mm-hmm.
The Mavs you can't do that with. So, the Timberwolves need to play their best or really close to their best, and I do think they're still in this series. But yeah, it's going to be tough, and I think tonight is so big because the Wolves win. The Wolves win tonight. The pressure is on for Dallas. They're really going to feel that pressure because if you're up, because then it's like, you
can't go back to Minnesota.
You can't go back to Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
For a game 7 it's tough.
Yeah, and that was like the same thing with last year with the Heat. Like they were up 3-0, they lose the next one. That like in Boston, they lose the next one in Boston. They're like, all right, whatever, we're up, we're up, or they lose one in Miami. All right, we're up 3-1, whatever. Obviously, the Heat won that series anyways, but like Tatum twisted his ankle and was clearly not like okay, for the rest of the game. So I think you want to close it out as soon as possible. I think they win tonight. I think Dallas will probably close it out at home. But if they don't, if the role players start to struggle and they start to crumble, Luka's very good and he can win you games by himself. I'm not saying he can't, but in a playoff setting where the other team is just as good as you, that's going to be hard to do. So, and I would not want to go play game 7 in Minnesota. Everyone's healthy. There's no problem. Knock on wood. There's no injuries right now other than Lively, which they say he might come back. I don't think he's going to come back. I think he's going to miss at least a week. I don't know. He could barely walk off the court.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I agree with you, Ryan. I think you gotta close it out as soon as possible. Like obviously you're saying like, hey, every game of the playoffs, you're like, this is a must win. Every game of the playoffs. But like,
Yeah.
I think you got to be as the Mavericks. You got to say, we need to win this because these games have been close. And we do not want to have any risk factor going in. You do not want to be the first team in NBA history to blow a 3-0 lead.
And if you let the other team win 2 straight, like they start to get that belief and they start to think like, oh, we can do this. You end up in a bad spot. So the Mavs, they're really gonna try to win tonight.
Yeah, and I think it also matters if we're gonna talk about Minnesota winning these next 2 games, if they're close. Like if they win tonight close, I'm not going back to Dallas worried personally. But if they win big, and then they, you know what I mean, like a was it game 6?
That's a statement
was
right there.
Yeah, if they can win big and be like, yeah, we can blow this team out, and then maybe go to Dallas and win by like a good size margin, like 10. That is something that I would be like, okay, they can do it. Yeah. Even then, like if it's still close, coming back to Minnesota, I still am gonna put faith in the Mavs' hands just because I think they've been the better team. And I still think that there have been players that have stepped up for the Timberwolves while Ant and Cat have fallen short. So I think I don't know how long those role players are gonna like continue to like step up.
Cat gave you a game. It's your turn, Ant. Like Ant, this is the game that you have to make shots. You need to pull up your end because he's made plays. I think he's made splash plays, but he has not been sustainably good enough, I think.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well.